happy to be here, and I'm even more excited to welcome our very accomplished panel of guests. Let's kick it off with Miss Savana Santos of Avenue Beat. Welcome.
Hi.
Savana is a songwriter, producer, incredible vocalist, and member of the band Avenue Beat, whose debut pop single F 2020 amassed over 20 million views on TikTok and reached the top 40 charts on pop radio. She splits her time between Nashville and Los Angeles, and this woman has the hustle that you cannot teach. I'm so happy to have you, Savana. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, quite a year you had in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah. Why?
In spite or because of the pandemic.
Yep.
We also have Lee Dannay from 30 Tigers joining us. Welcome, Lee.
Hi, thank you. Great to be here.
So happy to have you. So Lee is a career A&R and artist development executive with a long and successful history of senior management and roles at Sony Music, both Epic and Columbia Records, Warner Chappell Music Publishing. She's signed and developed, worked with such a broad range of artists, which I'm so excited to have her expertise for that very reason. Currently, Lee is the Vice President of A&R for 30 Tigers. So 30 Tigers is based in Nashville, and it is a label services company that offers marketing, distribution, and publishing. She's also an adjunct professor at NYU's Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music. Welcome. The list goes on.
Thanks.
And Simone Smalls, so happy to have you here. Welcome. Also based in New York City, Simone is the co-founder and partner of Strategic Heights Media, a full-service public relations and experiential marketing agency representing a diverse and long list of clients from ASCAP, Comcast, BET, Essence, the American Black Film Festival, Smartwater, you name it, she's on it. Incredible. Before forming Strategic Heights Media, she ran her own award-winning entertainment, public relations, and strategic marketing agency, representing some of the most prominent names in the music and entertainment industry. Cannot believe this stellar panel that we have with us. Simone, thank you for bringing all of that incredible experience and your public relations perspective to what we're talking about today, which is releasing music. So, again, my name is Beth Brinker. I have the honor of coming to you from Nashville, Tennessee, where I work with ASCAP Nashville in several capacities, one of which is working with artists and artist development every day. So this is something that we talk a lot about in meetings when we are face-to-face or over Zoom, whatever, it all works. So that's what we're going to talk about, is releasing music today. So these days, you can easily write, record, and release a song all in the same day. Pretty sure Savana Santos has done that. But that's not always the best course if you want to find a big audience for your music. With some more advanced planning and prep work, you might be able to find a bigger audience for your single or your record. And so we're calling this panel Roadmap to Release. We're laying out some of the most important steps to take and things to think about before you drop your new music. So one big question that'll easily come to mind first right out of the gate is, what kind of release schedule should I set? So Lee, when you're thinking about the A&R perspective, you've been working with an artist on an album or a single. What is some of the things that go into thinking about when you're going to release that song or that project?
Well, with us, we have a very sort of long lead time frame, which, you know, is probably almost in some ways contrary to the way you can record, release, and drop a single on the same day. We're almost really the opposite of that, because of the way we work. We're small. We're a boutique company, and every artist who is in a distribution relationship with us gets sort of their own team to help create the plan that's appropriate for their goals and for the vision of what their release is going to look like. Because we want to make sure that we have like the all of the bandwidth to take care of each artist in the right way and give the long lead time frame we need, generally singles working towards releasing an album. That's, pretty much how we work, versus just dropping sort of singles without, sort of singles in the way that it works a little bit easier today if you're an independent artist. We're kind of now releasing like 8-9 months of setup before we release an album. So if an album is delivered finished, that's when that process starts. And we're scheduling records 8-9 months out, and starting with, setting up multiple singles and all of the, marketing and promotion and radio strategy that we put in place, so that when the release drops, we are, that's sort of phase 1, and phase 2 is dropping the record and then continuing on that path. But that's our process is a little probably unique in some ways for independent artists, but it really is, it serves the right purpose when there's an artist with a very long vision in terms of whether it's touring and, when we get back to touring, as we're starting to, and really looking at a sort of a longer time frame for a campaign.
Simone, when it comes to you working with an artist, what part in that process, where do you typically come in?
Publicity normally comes in after A&R and the marketing department have decided when, that the music is completely done. They've already come to they've already done their strategy, and we come in where they want to release the song, and we decide on the best dates and the best date to do it, but also what is happening at that time. And then we'll decide, like, okay, maybe we should, what is the strategy behind releasing the single? Are we going to release it around, in the summer? Are we going to do it? Is it in the fall? And then the amount of lead time that we need just to get some traction, we will also need the assets. So like, is there a photo to go along with it? Like, what are the things that we have, publicity have in place to release the song and release and announce this music and announce that the artist is coming out? So it's all of the departments have to meet at one point to decide where does this lie and how can we put this out particularly best for the artist when it's going to give a lot of traction for the single. And for if there's a video component, what are all those assets that we have that will make the biggest bang for this release? And then, getting some publicity out of it, getting Billboard to cover it, having a strategy behind who are we going to release this to? So is it Billboard? Is it one of the trades? Is it one of the music outlets? Is it Rolling Stone? So we have to definitely have a bigger plan. The bigger plan is to release it when the artist feels comfortable, but also when all departments are in alignment with it.
What's so interesting about, Lee, what you and Simone both say is that you obviously work as part of a bigger team with artists. Some of them are more established, some of them might be still getting off the ground, but obviously there's a team in place. But everything that you're saying, Simone, when you were speaking, that definitely, those are all still checklists that independent DIY, do it yourself, you're in it, the trenches, you're doing it all on your own. That's still tips that they can follow. That's still a checklist that makes perfect sense for someone who doesn't have a team in place, which is really, really important. And obviously a big spirit behind what we're talking about today. Savana, you have, what I love about you is that you have a team in place, but this hustle that's so built into you that it must be hereditary because it's just in your bones. And you very much apply a do-it-yourself, very empowered yourself to create these assets, you produce, you make videos. You're kind of a one-woman show sometimes.
I think when I got with a team and a record label and all of that is when I really realized that everyone sees that as like the gold standard of where to get to and like you're dreaming and that's where you want to be. But when you get there is literally when the work begins, and how much work you put into it still yourself really correlates with where you will end up with your team. So you can get a team and it's so amazing to have those people helping you. But at the end of the day, it really does come back to like your work ethic and like believing in the music that you have so much that you will put in that work for yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's definitely something, even though, we function, 30 Tigers functions as, sort of a service team and sort of the back end service provider for the artists to be completely independent. It's really more of a partnership. But everything that we do and all the timelines, like to Simone's point, getting set up for release, deciding on how many singles, when the singles should roll out, what other assets exist, visuals, what is the tour plan, going forward, all of that aligns to the longer big picture, but none of that happens without the artist being creative and proactive and ultimately really having a vision for where they want to go. And, in the wild west of the music industry today, you can do it entirely on your own. You can piecemeal some partnerships together, or you can go more of the traditional route, but it all still comes down to, the music and the vision for the music and where the artist wants to go with this sort of roadmap, as you're saying. So I think it's really interesting to talk about all these different options that exist today. But it's also awesome when you have an artist who kind of just goes for it, and knows really like, this is what I'm going to do,
Simone, does an artist having that clear vision make your job a lot easier?
It definitely makes it a lot easier. Understanding, when an artist really understands their craft and understands how they want to be presented to the world and to the media, it helps us so much when they have a vision for themselves, because sometimes, artists, they don't know, and then all the other teams are talking and all the other teams are deciding on what an artist should do or when they should come out or what they should look like and everything. But at the end of the day, I always like to bring the artist into it and say, well, what do you think? What is your vision for yourself? What is your vision for your career? What is your vision for the next 2 years? What would you like to do? How would you like this single? How would you like this music? How would you like the world to perceive you? Mm-hmm. Where do you want to go? What lane do you see yourself in? What is that vision? What is your overarching vision for yourself? That way it helps us set up, some artists sometimes say, like the label and, I've had this happen. The label will put them in one category. And then if you don't talk to the artist and down the line, the artist, they're not sometimes even in alignment. And I was like, I don't see myself there. I don't really see myself in this category with these other artists. I see myself here. So I like to bring in, and I like to ask the artist up front, yeah, it's great that we're having this meeting with the team, the bigger team, but what do you see for yourself? Where do you see yourself going? Not in everything now, because everything is so digital, it depends, what types of music do you want to put out? Do you want to do it as a leak? Do you want to do it as a teaser? Is this teaser single you want to put out before the actual single? So these are a lot of things to consider in an overall plan, because sometimes you can leak stuff that actually might help set the tone for a bigger single that you want to put out maybe 2-3 months later. But fans have already started growing to know who this artist is, especially as an independent artist or a new up and coming artist. A teaser single sometimes can help even before it's an official single.
I love that so much. It so clearly, this is exactly what I was hoping to accomplish with this panel. So excuse me while I go ahead and get excited, and we haven't even gotten halfway through. When you say that about talking with the artist, that makes so much sense to me, because even, and part of what I do beyond my work at ASCAP is styling with artists. And when you think about their image, this is an asset that's important for releasing music. So what's that cover going to look like? Is it even their image at all? Is it just illustration? Is that something that means something to the artist? If you are styling an artist, this isn't meant to be like a fashion shoot. You want them to look like themselves. And, it needs to be a representation of who they are, and not just how fancy they can get one day, Savana, you seem to have a very big hand in the assets that you put out for the band. Mm-hmm. Tell us about your process with that.
I learned everything on YouTube, so you can learn anything, I promise. I think it just came from wanting to have a hand in every aspect of what I create, because I wanted it to feel genuine and authentic. That's something that I figured out right away when I got into all of this, is that authenticity, it's so cheesy, but it's literally true. Authenticity is key because people can see through fake stuff. So I wanted to make sure, like, when I was creating and like putting something out to the world, they got a full picture of what I was in the art too, I guess. It's a nice way to feel like really connected to your music too, to like have a hand in everything.
By creating videos to go along with the release of music for you, have you seen that really influence the following?
I think so. I think it helps create a brand. Like, it helps you connect with your fans because when you're creating everything, it's your mind, so they get to see into your brain, and like it really makes the connection go deeper because they're understanding you because they're watching what you're creating.
Simone, when you guys are working on strategy, is that something that you think about, how video assets can be released through different social platforms?
Yes, video assets play a huge part in releasing, and putting out and to the world and what an artist represents. So if there's, if there's enough video content there's a big strategy that we put behind it. One, for social, but also just for, with the digital media outlets, because you can have a social media plan, but then you can also have a digital media plan of how you want to release certain, video or any type of content, even photo content, to the world and to the media. So there might be one, we might want to do a certain video for maybe like Rolling Stone and give it as an exclusive to Billboard. But then for social media, we may want to give it, we want to have them release it through social media as well. So, as much video content, I always tell artists, the more video content you have, the better, because it allows us to do so many different things with strategy and doing for a social media plan, a digital media plan, and just, for an overall artist representation and for overall artist visual. It's good to just have that, because then we're also, the timeline also is, if you want to put out something during something seasonal, given what's happening on the calendar, you can put that out. If you have something that's happening around, even if you recorded something around where an artist is singing something for like Mother's Day, and you're putting that out, around Mother's Day or around Valentine's Day, like whatever that is, all of that video content really, really helps the strategy, and it actually helps build an artist profile as you go along the way. And even if you're doing covers of other artists, sometimes that's even a great thing to do, because fans are getting to hear what you sound like and how you may cover an artist song, or how you might interpret, an artist song that you love, but it's completely different in the way that they recorded it. So all of that video content, in my opinion, would be, it's the best thing that an artist can have along with photos, especially right now in this digital world that we're in and everything that's happened with the pandemic. I mean, everything is digital right now. Everything is virtual. Why not keep recording all this visual content and all these videos so that you can release them at a certain time and just keep teasing the audience? The more you tease, the more video content you have, the more you're able to tease and increase your following.
And when we talk about video content, it doesn't necessarily have to be very high quality professional these days. Those days are kind of gone because it's so easy now to record and edit with iPhones, iPads.
Yeah. So with technology these days, it's easy for it's made it easier for a lot of people, a lot of artists, to record on their phone and edit on their phone via their smartphones, but also via like platforms like Instagram and TikTok and Reels, and to be able to provide really good content. And also to be able to put it out so that fans are growing, they're growing their audience with their fans. But is it always necessary to have complete, if you're doing it yourself, and and if you're a new independent artist that can't afford a camera crew to follow you around like a lot of these artists are right now, it's good to do it through these platforms and through a smartphone and iPhone. As long as you have good lighting, as long as you have, a good visual presentation, do it yourself and do it well. Get maybe one of your friends, or get someone to, you know, maybe perhaps make a, reach out to, and I've recommended this to other independent artists, find their, you know, photography schools and certain schools that have a lot of up and coming photographers and videographers that are looking to get a break as well. Barter services or barter or pair up with them, get them to record you, whatever, because they want their work out there too. So pair up with them and try to get them to like shoot you on the street or shoot you, you know, making a video, whatever, because that's also their resume too.
Yeah.
I tell my students that all the time when we're working on projects, that they should find each other, whether, you know, if it's an artist or a singer-songwriter that's trying to express themselves in a certain way. It's like, go to the film students and see what they're up to, and you know, do a collaboration, and it works for both, you know, for both of them. But also I wanted to sort of add something too, that to the point that we were talking about authenticity in the kind of content. When I'm looking at artists, you know, and obviously in this past year in particular, I'm not going to clubs looking at artists. Every artist that comes my way is sending me some kind of visual. I'm so much more drawn to artists who find really creative ways of doing something kind of homespun. And you know, obviously I want the quality to be good enough that I can, you know, see it and hear it properly. But sometimes when I get like a really overproduced video or something, my instinct is like, well, I don't know if I'm really seeing the real artist here, because this looks really overly edited, and I really want to see the artist in their own environment more organically. It speaks to me a little bit more, and I think to be able to, you know, even before the point of putting music out to help build your socials and help, you know, all of that, it's also important. But even the beginning of, you know, if you're a new artist trying to find a label or find a team, speaking your narrative through that visual and showing us who you are in a very authentic way, to me resonates a lot in the beginning. And I think it also serves the purpose of helping to sort of start your process and start growing your, you know, your socials. But I would definitely, I love when I see an artist who has taken something really simple through their phone and has expressed their music in a way that's really clever and creative. It's hard, you know, it's easier to say than it is to actually do it, but an artist who can really find a way to, you know, let their music show through that is something that I think is really important these days.
I agree.
I can contribute the apps that I use right now on my phone, literally to edit videos. There's two of them. I use this app called Video Leap for editing, and this app called Prequel for filters. You can download it on the store and just like learn how to use it really easily. So go do it.
Yes. Savannah, you've definitely found a way to communicate with fans, and also I feel like you were communicating with fans, and in turn the industry was like, got a better glimpse of who you were because you were not thinking about them. You were just like going straight to the sort, like to the people. And you did that in such a natural way that's sort of how it all sort of took off for you last year, where you were just face to face with fans. And then the industry was like, well, I want to get more into that. Even though you were already signed, it just took a different turn because you took that pressure off of what should I be doing, and then you were just yourself interacting with fans.
Yeah, that's why TikTok was a blessing when it came out, because we were like, oh, like a platform we can do whatever we want on it, and our label is just like post on TikTok. They don't say post this specific thing. So we were just using it to just like express ourselves and not think about what we were posting, which is what made it work. So
exactly. Yay. Lee, I have a question for you, and also this goes to everybody. So when I think about how much content that artists create these days, I also makes me think about the certain kind of artist who we used to only be able to fall in love with because of their lyrics and their music. We didn't have access to all the information that we do now. It used to be about mystique. Lee, I feel like a lot of artists that you work with now probably still want to maintain some of that mystique. How do you balance that with what you know needs to be done in certain cases to have a successful release?
I think it's a very individual decision, with the artist specifically. I think to your point, what Simone was talking about before, like sometimes when you're putting out singles and you're teasing or you're putting out little bits of content, and there's sort of a build up to the release of a single, the build up to the release of visual. I think it sort of depends on. I know, like in our world, it's all part of the story that we are trying to help the artist tell. So for an artist who might be a little bit more introverted and not want to show the contents of their home or, what they cooked for breakfast on the road or something, we would sort of encourage them to maybe have a more traditional, sort of rollout where you're not just sort of over talking and oversharing information on social media. I think there's a little bit of like, any way that works for the artist's comfort zone today is okay, and it's appropriate, and it's right for us to all get behind supporting the artists in whatever way they feel most comfortable. If they don't want to overshare, we'll set something up a little more traditionally. We'll put out some audio, and then maybe there'll be a more traditional video, then maybe there'll be some curated performances. But for an artist who can't help talking about the music and and wants to share and make that very direct interactive relationship with a fan, we'll find ways to support that as well too. And I think that is more driven from the artist directly, and that fan interaction doesn't need us really. I think many of our artists have that organically. They just communicate with their fans extremely well, and we just sit back and applaud them, and say that's great. You've done that heavy lifting, and you've done the setup, and now we can help sell your record in stores where there are stores, and we can help promote digitally and promote in more sort of traditional fashion. But I think that is really just a very individual decision that also kind of comes up when we have those initial marketing conversations, when we're setting up the campaigns with our artists. Those are the first conversations we'll have with the artists, their managers, their whoever their team is, their PR team, and we really sort of help set that tone, and then we follow their lead as to the way that's most comfortable for them to reveal themselves, whether it's mysteriously or whether it's like, hey, I just want to tell you guys everything. Here's me.
I love it. Yeah, that's a point that I wanted to make, because there is no right or wrong. It's just very specific to the artist. So we've talked a lot about the fun, kind of creative, outward facing. There's some administrative pieces that are super important when you're putting out music. For example, performance royalties. So registering your new music with ASCAP, that's important for performance royalties in a few months, but it's also so that people can contact you directly for sync licensing immediately, things like that. People don't always think about sound exchange. If you're an artist, that's very important. Distributing, direct sales. Do you have merch? Are there any things like that you've seen maybe historically, or you always make sure to check a box on the admin side before releasing music for all of you guys?
Well, I guess I can jump in the sense that, like, with 30 Tigers, the artists are their own label, essentially. So all of the initial, setting up the relationship with the PRO, making sure that metadata is correct, dealing with mechanicals. We don't really do that. We really help once that's all, we can help guide the artists and their team to tell them how to do it, and to show, make the introductions with the appropriate people to get that done. But our team sort of focuses more on the, the marketing and the promotion and the radio plan and the retail plan and the DSPs. The artist's label essentially is responsible for making sure that all of the masters and all of the metadata involved with sort of asset delivery is done. Everyone on our team has the capabilities to help direct the artists, so that if it's this great mystery of, like, I've made all this music, how do I get there? What do I do with this music? We have departments and teams of people who can help navigate all of the mystery of that, of those paths. But it is really important, because if the metadata and all of that information isn't sorted out, if the artist doesn't have their own sort of, in their own self-publishing or publishing relationship set up to be able to collect those assets, all of the hard work goes to waste if there's great music out there that isn't actually earning money for the artists. That's really the bottom line, is like, be smart about your business, and whatever team you have, if you do it yourself or if you have a distribution team or a label, make sure that those boxes are checked properly. And now sign up with the MLC, and all of as things change and evolve in the industry, it's really important for artists to understand, how to best set themselves up and protect themselves and monetize, those assets.
I agree. And for me, most of the time, a lot of that would be set up already before they come to me. But if not, if they're not with a distributor, obviously the first point, our first suggestion is to, get with ASCAP, and let ASCAP, publish their music and be their music publisher. But if they're not having, if they also don't have Spotify, and we have those relationships to refer them to get their their music registered with like Spotify and Apple and everything. But for the most part, if you're do it yourself, if you're DIY, these artists and songwriters really should have a hold on their own career and not rely so much on a team, and be very much interested in doing a lot of this on their own.
Yeah, I was gonna say Google is your best friend. Yes. You really can look up anything on Google and you will figure out how to do it. Yes. And you feel so empowered, like knowing how every aspect of a song release works, because then you'll know how to do it for the future, and you'll know how to do it for yourself. It's just, I very much encourage you to go figure out how this all works, because it's really interesting too.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because before the internet, not only were artists mysterious, but record companies and the music industry was mysterious. When I started my first job many, many years ago, people couldn't just call and find us. They would have to, go through a billion back channels and know someone who knew someone who knew someone before you could even get the name. If you called up and said, can I speak to someone in the A&R department, they'd hang up on you, or they'd say, well, if you don't know who you're talking to, we can't help you. Now you can Google anyone, you can find out any information about how anything works. And I know for me, when I'm looking at new artists and talking to new artists, ASCAP is like the first stop in terms of like, find a great person, find that partner who can help you then answer some of these questions. You guys give such incredible, knowledge and information to help artists on that path. But if they don't take that initiative, if artists don't take the initiative to figure some of this out on their own, because it's actually so transparent and so easy to find, then it definitely would say something to me in terms of maybe the artist isn't totally ready yet, because their expectation is that someone else is going to do this for them. I think that in today's industry, it's very, very important and also very attractive to labels and other companies that an artist is prepared to understand their business and be proactive about getting their business set up properly.
Absolutely agree. And that even reminds me of when I was in publishing. If a songwriter didn't take the initiative to set up their own co-write, they were in the conversation, they could have just put it on the calendar and didn't. I'd be like, what? You just wanted me to babysit that conversation and I wasn't there? That makes zero sense. So it is so attractive to be able to work with someone who wants to make it, who wants to work. They have that hustle. I always say, and this is how I describe Savana, is do you have the hustle that you cannot be taught? Is it built in? Because that is really, really necessary when we're talking about, especially when we're talking about releasing music independently, which a lot of what we're talking about is. Like Savana said, if you get that dream team, it's awesome, but that doesn't mean that the work stops. It means that you have to ramp it up and work even harder. Mm-hmm. So I think that we've covered so much ground. We've talked about assets that are needed, photos, graphics are very important, an updated bio, merch, figuring out your distributor, making sure that your songs are registered, utilizing social media to be your own creative distributor, right? Are there any little final thoughts that you want to share with our ASCAP experiencers before we go? I
guess I'll say this from the more sort of traditional A&R sense. all of this is amazing, and there's so much opportunity out there to just get started independently and to actually forge a great career. But ultimately, the caliber of your songs and the quality of your music is really going to be the driving force to having a career. You know, you can have a novelty hit and get lucky and have some great experiences, but you know, if we're talking to an audience of songwriters and aspiring artists, you know, the most important asset is you as a songwriter. What do you have to say, and how are you going to tell us about yourself through your music? And that's to me the thing that is going to create the best possible outcome for a career, is just great songwriting.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, there's no right release plan or wrong release plan. Like, it's not something to die on the hill over. Like, everything doesn't have to be like exactly perfect, because it really does just come back to if the song resonates with people. And if it does, then your plan will work. If it doesn't, then your plan will flop, and then you move on and you try to.
Definitely.
And then I think also, you know, for a lot of new artists and songwriters, no one is going to have more passion for you than you. So do everything that you have to do and outwork everybody around you, and even on your team, to get your music out there and to create great songs. And just to get a following, just to get your music out there. Like, you know, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but there is passion behind everything. If you don't have the passion, it's not going to work. Like, you can have a good song, but also not have the passion for it. Like, not have the passion to do the work to get it where it needs to go, and to have the amount of listeners that it needs to, you know, and followers, to get your followers and to get a fan base, you know, for that music. So no one's going to have more passion than you do.
Yes.
True. Guess you need all of it today. You really need to just, you got to fight that fight, and need to do this above all else, right?
And the great part is it's never been easier to equip yourself with everything that you need. Lee Dannay, Simone Small, Savana Santos, thank you so much for joining us on this little adventure. I cannot tell you how happy I am to have been a part of this conversation with you, for you guys to join us. Everybody watching, we hope you gain some helpful tools and tricks that will help you as you go forward on your adventure of releasing music. And the truth is, the roadmap and the journey looks very different for everyone. And if you take away one thing, know that your power lies in your songs and your lyrics and your individual point of view. So we hope that you continue to tap in on that. And we're just happy that you're here, and we're happy that you're releasing music. Best of luck, and thanks for joining us on ASCAP Experience.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Beth.